Yet another child has been brutally murdered in South Africa. The body of a 3-year-old with stab wounds was found in the open veld in Orange Farm yesterday. On Wednesday night, President Cyril Ramaphosa spoke of 2 pandemics faced by the country, gender-based violence being the second. Now, over the past few weeks, no fewer than 21 women and children have been murdered. Dereleen James from the Black Doek movement SA activist joins us now for a bit more on this. Dereleen, thanks very much for your time. It certainly is a difficult situation to try and think through, but at the start, we're also hearing of yet another body of a woman being found in the late hours of yesterday. Give us a sense of what we know about that.
We basically just left the scene of the 3-year-old, and hours later, we were notified that yet another body was found of a woman in Orange Farm. We don't have much information on that, but it was rather devastating to find that in the same area, 2 bodies, this a day after the president just spoke about this.
Yeah, and it certainly, I guess, takes us back to those ancient old questions about what it would take, you know. Activists, scholars, academics have mulled over this question for years, really, in our country. Do you think we're any closer to answering it?
This is one pandemic that needs a united front. It needs all of us. It needs government. It needs people in communities. It needs NGOs. It needs everyone to actually become active citizens of this country. So many of us are aware of those people that are suffering. So many of us know someone that is currently, you know, in an abusive relationship, our neighbors, but we seem to turn a blind eye and we only raise our voices on social media. You know, it is time that we get involved and we make that business our business and we report those cases. It cannot be business as usual, especially in communities, you know, where we don't have the high walls, where our kids walk around freely and we have to send them to the shops. We cannot fear and say, you know what, because this is what we're going through, we can no longer take to the streets, we cannot go shopping. We honestly feel that we have to lock ourselves up as women in this country. It is just too dangerous and things are just out of hand at the moment.
Yeah, and you know, the Children's Institute at UCT has at some stage mentioned how these moments shine a spotlight on the vulnerability of children in the country. Do you feel that's where perhaps we need to start, right? Trying to ensure that we're able to safeguard children and other vulnerable community members before, I guess, trying to combat this in a myriad of ways through which it appears?
We need more support in communities. If that is the aim, to support our children. You know, in Eldorado Park, I know when we try and get hold of social services at the department in the past, the response time is something like 2 to 3 days, where people don't come out for immediate place of safety for those children. There's so many children that's loitering the streets. There's so many children that are on drugs. There's so many children that's just because of what they are facing, they run away from home. And we just don't feel that sense of urgency from everyone that is supposed to be the custodians of the Children's Act. We don't see that on the ground. So what is being said, and, you know, with all due respect, amazing plans are always put at the top at national level, but when it filters down to the ground, we don't see that response. We don't see that help coming forward.
Yeah, I mean, you speak about what's been said. The president had previously mentioned something speaking against gender-based violence. In fact, President Ramaphosa mentioning that, you know, the scourge needs to stop. Perhaps as we reflect on a way forward, let's remind our viewers of what the president had to say.
It is with the heaviest of hearts that I stand before the women and the girls of South Africa this evening to talk about another pandemic that is raging in our country. The killing of women and children by the men of our country. As a man, as a husband, and as a father to daughters, I am appalled at what is no less than a war that is being waged against the women and the children of our country.
So the president there being described as giving the most bold sort of retort against gender-based violence in the country. But I mean, many people are looking at that as just, you know, platitudes and just lip service. What's your take on the way through which the president went to address this issue just this week?
He's very right when he says there's a war on the women of this country. And when he says there's a war, it needs to be it sort of needs to be reciprocated with action. I am still amazed that South Africans haven't taken to the streets. You had the Black Lives Matter movement in America. I would have expected for South Africans and for the women of this country to have stopped everything, for this country to have come to a standstill where we say that enough is enough. We go forward and we make our voices heard. And it cannot just be about another hashtag that is trending. It cannot just be about us making our voices heard. We actually want to see the justice system in our favor. We actually want to see all of those cases that has been dragging for years. We want to see those perpetrators come to book. We want to see protection for women. We want to see support for women. We don't just want to hear about it and say this is what we are embarking on, but we want to see tangible evidence stemming from these campaigns, as well as tangible evidence coming from government.
And I guess the big question then, Dereleen, is what do we do in the interim? For instance, what next to the community that we're seeing now on our screens? A video I think that you shared on social media, a woman praying there at the scene, I believe, where the 3-year-old's body was found. How do we move forward in the interim?
It's very difficult to move forward for us as the Black Youth Movement. We are wearing these black Dukes right now for the next 14 days as women in this country to symbolize the fact that we are in mourning, to symbolize the fact that we are our sister's keeper. And if we know of any one of our sisters, our neighbors, that is being abused right now, it is up to us to reach out to them and give them a place of safety while we wait on the more sort of impactful services to reach us.
Yeah, it certainly is going to need all of us to play our part. And there's been a big debate about where men in particular fit in that conversation. DJ Play Coffee decided to hold a march. I think it was earlier this week. Many people pushed back against the ways through which that took place. What are your thoughts on the conversations that men in particular should be having with each other about ways through which we can become allies against the scourge?
You know what? That is something very, very important that I actually wanted to start my conversation with. We cannot protect ourselves. I think if anything right now to make us feel safer, we need men at the forefront of this campaign. We need men at the forefront of this pandemic that we are facing with. We need men because those men know their brothers. They know their friends that is abusing. They need to change their attitudes. The mindset needs to change. It is for men to tell us, where we went wrong, because we are looking back at ourselves and we are saying, but what are we doing as women? What is it that's upsetting men? And why are we seeing all this anger towards us? It is for men to tell us, what is the way forward here, as it is the men of this country that are the perpetrators.
All right, so, as you can imagine, many people have responded to the discovery of the 3-year-old girl's body yesterday. Let's take a look at some of those responses and I guess reflect on ways through which people are trying to...
Mercy upon our women! Mercy upon our country, Father God! We cannot carry on this way! We pray that you will forgive us, Father God! That you will cleanse us, Father! We pray for everyone that commits an serious crime, Father! We pray that you will send them to the end of the earth today! Devil! Get away from us, Father. We can't do those such as everyone anymore. We pray for your blessing, Father. We pray for leading on our country. Please hear our cry.
Right, that's a really difficult video to try and sit through. And I understand, Dereleen, you posted that on social media yesterday. I mean, when you see people responding in that type of way, it certainly does elicit all kinds of emotions. Your immediate reflections?
Like the ladies that was on the scene said, that we were actually accompanied by MMC Margaret Arnold's of Community Development and Cheryl Pillay from the Local Drug Action Committee. And like they said yesterday, we are tired. We don't know how much more we need to express. We don't know what more to ask or what to say. How many more protests to have, marches. We are basically tired of living in fear. It cannot be that we are picking up the bodies of innocent, of our children, 3 years old. What did she do? Like MMC Arnold said, what did she do to be brutally murdered like that? You know, for her body to have been found in a bag, in a basket, in an open field. She was defenseless. She didn't have a voice to protect herself. The trauma that these women are going through. You know, I go to bed at night and I hear these women screaming. You hear those voices. One doesn't know, you're really feeling helpless. As much as what we're coming across as strong and we are fighting this, we are at a loss, because we are finding these cases by the hour. Yesterday alone, after we had left the scene of the 3-year-old, it was then, you know, the notification of the other lady that was found in Orange Farm, and hours later one has to read about a woman's torso who was found near Mall of the South. I mean, surely, you know, that leaves you numb.
At the very least. Dereleen, let me thank you very much for your time and your insights, albeit under these very, very difficult circumstances. One can only hope that your pleas, your petitions, and the many other things that you and your colleagues do finally, I guess, materialize in meaningful ways. Dereleen, thank you very much indeed. Dereleen James is an activist with the Black Doek movement SA, and yeah, apologies there, that should have really come with a trigger warning.